All right, welcome to WSQ number 14, our last WSQ in chapter 4, talking about cell processes and energy, and this will be a short one. Today we're going to talk about cell differentiation. We're going to learn what differentiation is today, and we're going to learn what factors influence how and when cells actually differentiate within different organisms. Specifically, we're going to talk about the difference between plants and animals today. So let's jump right into this WSQ and get this one done. So what is differentiation? That's a big word which refers to the process by which cells change. This is important. Cells change in structure and become capable of carrying out specialized functions. Okay, so when we talk about differentiation, we're actually talking about specialization. Okay, and that's a really important term to understand. Not all cells are designed to do the same things. Certain cells have specific structures and specific functions that they have to be responsible to deal with. Now, these differences are differences in, as we said, these different differences are in structure. So when we talk about structure, we're actually talking about the actual design, what they look like. Okay, so actually, is the cell round and oblong? Is the cell square? Is the cell stretched out and thin? Is a cell bumpy? What's going on? That's actually, we're talking about structure, what the cell looks like and how it's actually designed. Function is, hey, what does the cell do? Is it responsible for carrying oxygen? Is it responsible for being a barrier like your skin? What's the cell's actual function? What does it do? And different cells do different things. Also, we need to realize that these differences, when cells differentiate, they actually get more organized. So cells that do the same kinds of things, let's say, if I have a bunch of skin cells, well, they make up skin tissues. And those skin tissues make up the organ of the skin and systems, okay? And so cells will actually organize according to their function and structure. Similar to if I go to the doctor's office and I'm having trouble with my eyes, I'm going to go to the eye department and I'm going to see optometrists and ophthalmologists, those people that have been trained specifically for the eye. If I go to another wing of the hospital and I'm dealing with foot problems, well, I'm going to go and see podiatrists. I'm going to see people that are specifically doctors that know feet. So cells get organized according to their function and structure, and so we have different tissues, different organs, different systems because of what they're shaped like and how they function. And you also need to understand that cells increasingly will become more and more specialized. What that means is this: as an organism develops, you're going to get more specialization. A classic example of this is in the human eye. Okay, so we have our eyeball and my pupil, my iris. Yeah, it's a horrible eyeball. There we go. Let me get some little. There you go. Ugh. Whatever, that's my eye, right? There's the nose to help you realize that. Now, what happens is in the eyeball, when a baby's first born, early in development, you're not going to see the development of all the different sensitive light cells, right? You're going to see rod cells, which are going to actually function early on, okay, because they can function in dim light, but we found that babies actually can't see in color for a time. You see this in other animals as well. We'll see it in dogs and things like that. Typically, what happens is those cells, as that organism develops more and more, those cells will actually become more and more specialized. So then you'll start to see cone cells show up. So the rods may be that early cells that show up. Why? Because they're less refined, less specialized. But then later on, you'll see the cone cells show up. Okay? So they're more and more specialized. So as you mature, as development carries on, certain things become more and more and more developed and you get more specialized cells. Okay, and so that's a fabulous way to think about differentiation. Now, how do cells differentiate? The cell purpose and the reason why they differentiate is really broken down into three things. It's been determined. It's found in the DNA. Okay. And the future of each cell is really determined by the DNA, that deoxyribonucleic acid that has the blueprints for the cell. It's determined by the function that is necessary, and it's determined by the type of organism. So what a cell becomes is going to actually be a factor of those three things. Some cells differentiate completely during development, so all those particular cells are done. And a classic example of that is a female human is born with the amount of eggs that they're going to have, she's going to have for her life. okay, that's actually already differentiated. Those cells are already done. But then there's other cells like red blood cells, white blood cells, which are going to happen later on in life. Now let's talk about the two different types of organisms, really, how specialization happens. In animals, cell specialization comes down to this term right here. You may have heard these before. All animals have what are called stem cells. Stem cells are specialized cells that can differentiate through the life of an animal. So you literally start with this cell that could become a red blood cell, or it could become B cells and T cells, which are white blood cells. It could become cardiac muscular tissue, heart tissue. It could become a neuron. It could become a beta cell that's used for signaling different things. It could become a structural cell like bone tissue. So stem cells have the ability to become whatever is needed. And there are stem cells in young developing organisms, and there's stem cells in adults as well. We will talk a little bit about this when we talk about the real issue right now with stem cell research. Stem cell research, when they talk about stem cell research, they're usually talking about taking babies that have been literally fertilized in the lab, created in the lab, human babies, and then they basically breed them so that they can use their stem cells, because growing babies have lots of stem cells. So, and it's a horrible thing. That's embryonic stem cell research is the word we're talking about. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as we progress. In plants, they don't have stem cells, but what they have is plants have undifferentiated cells in their stems and their roots that can give rise to being other cells. So let's say in the roots of the plant cell, it can become a leaf cell. It can become a transport cell like the xylem and phloem. It can become a root cell. And so plants have this ability to take one cell that's undifferentiated and allow that cell to actually differentiate to become a particular specialty. I use the example of the doctors at the beginning, and I think that's a good one to help us understand. If you go to medical school, doctors start out really with general care. And as they progress, as they go further and further down the line, they may go into a doctor like this doctor might decide to pursue a path of surgery. This doctor wants to do family medicine. This doctor wants to do, cancer, so he's going to be an oncologist. Okay, this doctor wants to pursue the GI tract, right? So it's the gastrointestinal tract. Now, from here, they can specialize more. This doctor in surgery, well, he could specialize. He wants to be in brain surgery. And this doctor wants to be in foot surgery. And the family doctor, maybe he just wants to stay there. So you'll see as it goes further and further, well, maybe he's just going to do brain surgery that is referring to the occipital lobe, or which would be brain surgery really related to eyes, the eyes and sight and things like that. And so you see the specialization that happens. That is differentiation. That's WSQ number 14. We've watched it. Please summarize and answer the questions, and you're done. Thank you.